Few people have been asking me recently how to utilize chariots, and I talked a little bit about it in a previous video, but I figured I'd covered it a little bit more today as this replay affords me a great opportunity. The Chariot Lord, yes, that's right, the Chariot Lord. No Sirtha Ek, no Grom the Ponj, no Kazarak the One-Eye, indeed Cetra the Imperishable here. One of my patrons, new patron, currently called Achilles in game here, is wanting to learn Tomb Kings. He's a recent patron of mine, and as some of you may know, I have kind of a training scheme available on my Patreon, those who pay a certain amount per month. And yeah, as far as learning Tomb Kings go, Cetra on a Chariot is insanely powerful. We'll talk more about that in just a minute, but to go over the builds here, my build a little bit experimental. I'm actually playing the Dark Elves against Achilles. Tomb Kings here. I've got Rakarth on foot. I actually totally meant to take him on the Chariot, but forgot to select the mount, so there he is. We've got a Charybdis, 3 Dark Shards, a Sorceress, Lord of Fire, couple Corsairs, 4 Fear Spears, and some Dark Riders with shields, 4 of them as well. For Achilles' army, Skeleton Horseman Archers, very solid unit overall. A couple Carrion, also great. He's got a Casket of Souls here. Can be decent against Dark Elf Infantry. We've got a bunch of Skeleton Warriors, 2 Shopti Great Bows, and of course Cetra on the Chariot. So, Chariots in general, as I mentioned the other day, the rule is ABCs. Remember your ABCs. Always be charging, and that's the biggest thing with Chariots, is you've got to keep them moving more than anything. They rely almost entirely on their charge bonus. Like if we take a look, Cetra on his Chariot here, for how expensive he is, only 45 melee attack, doesn't seem great, but 100 charge bonus, literally 100 charge. So what that does is that adds to his weapon strength and weapon strength and melee attack on the charge, right? And then it fades over 11 seconds. And there is a cooldown, I believe, a per unit cooldown, so you can't necessarily get the charge bonus on the same unit super fast. Going to throw down a Burning Head here on some of his skeletons to try and isolate them. Shopti Great Bow is absolutely lighting up my Charybdis here, but my build is somewhat weak to Chariots. I mean, I do have a little bit of mass here in the Charybdis, which is probably going to go down. I do get a hold of the Casket of Souls, though. But I've also got some Dark Riders kind of in this periphery engagements here, losing and winning in various pockets. The Corsairs winning the frontline engagement, but all of this infantry I've got is going to be somewhat vulnerable to the Chariots. Cetra here actually charges with his Chariot a monster, which is something that you can do. You just have to be careful not to be stationary for too long. Etc. here in some potential danger as my Dark Shards move up, try and get a firing lane on him. We've got Murderous Prowess kicking off as well, so nice big power spike. And Cetra currently with the Blessed Blade of Petra. I don't know, is he actually getting attacks? He is, and debuffing the Charybdis stats, so it just absolutely loses horribly there. Gonna drive by, flash a light as he pulls away there. And yeah, I've got some Spears and Dark Riders kind of tying up some Shopti Great Bows. Carrion are gonna swoop in there. Basically, everything just needs to last as long as it can so that Cetra can deal with all of this infantry, more or less. And now, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Always be charging, so immediately when you hit a unit, click an attack order onto another unit or click an order away. And just make sure that your lane is clear. I mean, you can sometimes pull through infantry if they're standing, but generally you want to try and make sure that you have a clear escape lane. That's why it's kind of tough to charge really thick blobs, and it does depend on the type of infantry, right? As Cetra sits in sustained combat for a little bit here, it's not going to be great for him. Rakarth does have lots of extra bonus versus large right now for the Beast Slaver, up to 500 weapon strength, 46 bonus versus large, 313 AP, so Cetra does need to pull away from that. And kind of demonstrates, yeah, you don't want to sit in those prolonged engagements. Melee attack on Chariots is typically very bad, so you definitely want to keep them moving to avoid taking hits. But I'm going to start focusing on the Shopti there. I could focus on Cetra himself, but he's got the physical resistance, going to be active on and off, and he's also, due to the fact that he's a fast-moving target, I could potentially be friendly firing my own troops. He's going to continue to roll around all over my Dark Shards there. Shopti Great Bows do manage to get bailed out by the Carrion there. They rout off my Dark Riders, and of course the speed allows them to get away from my infantry, but there's a lot left, right? And Cetra driving through here, just absolutely dumping on my Dark Shards. They're kind of, from a target priority sense, the most dangerous thing to him, besides maybe Rakarth himself. But even then, Cetra can just avoid Rakarth for the most part and not take the engagement until the very late game, until he can possibly get some good support. But we'll see. This will take some time, so we're going to put it on double time here. maybe even a little bit of full fast forward as Cetra starts to put his work in. And it is often in these late game situations where, like, my mobility's mostly been neutralized. I've got a handful of Dark Riders, but they're Achilles doing a great job kind of making sure they don't come back with his carrion. Skeleton Horseman Archers as well over here. Continuing to poke. I'm going to try and charge them down, because I am faster, technically, yes. But, yeah, they just give up on their leadership and flee, so there's that. And if we check in on Cetra here, 96 kills, which is just fantastic. So, generally, he's been doing a great job of keeping Cetra on the move, charging into different targets. We saw just a short moment there. He got caught up by Rakarth, but of course, Rakarth being on foot means that he can't keep up with Cetra whatsoever, and even on his Chariot, I think, I'd have to compare the speed, maybe we'll look at that, but I'm pretty sure Cetra's Chariot is faster. And yeah, let's continue to fast forward a little bit. Some of my units are going to shatter here. Cetra just, you know, the menacing presence of him, he doesn't even have to touch them, they just look at the flaming wheels of the Chariot and immediately want to run away. I should be honestly boxing up with my spears here a little bit to try and protect against this, but I'm still also trying to pursue these Ushabti Great Bows here. Maybe a little bit sloppy on my micro, but that's okay. Ushabti Great Bows continuing to kite and fight. Skeleton Horse Archers just use up the last of their ammunition, so it's going to be a relatively long late game. But, I mean, Ushabti Great Bows here get an opportunity to get some direct fire on Rakarth. Again, this is a bit of a mistake by me. He really should be sitting in these infantry here. But, yeah, I'm going to pop that Beast Slaver once again. Beast Lord's Gaze also on himself to keep him from routing. Just give that little bit of extra leadership. Skeleton Horsemen come in, though, to disrupt. Cetra just outmaneuvers, and anytime my spears aren't braced, he's going to be getting the full, you know, benefit of that charge bonus. And that's another tip for using chariots. Obviously, you don't want to charge into the front of braced spears. Charging into the side, or if the spears are unbraced, then you can charge them in the front. Like, if they're moving, certainly you can charge them in the front, but obviously side or rear charges are really ideal. Cetra continuing to give himself that incantation protection, gives himself a tiny little bit of trickle healing as well. But, yeah, we're going to continue on with this. Again, it will go on for some time. With Rakarth having taken so much damage from the Ushabti Great Bows, and they've even still got a little bit of ammunition left to try and fire, and they do indeed fire in. Cetra comes in, and in a small kind of pitched engagement there, Blessed Blade of Petra active to debuff Rakarth's stats. Kind of missed that, but yeah, Rakarth died. Here he is. Wow, just got straight up decapitated by Cetra. That's brutal. Oh, man. Fun stuff. And I'm going to continue to pursue these Ushabti Great Bows. I'm not sure exactly 100% on attacking rules in this situation. I want to say he's allowed to kite and shoot as long as he's still shooting and has the ammunition to do so with these Ushabti Great Bows. But you know, it's just practice for the patron. We're not really too worried about that at the moment. More just worried about skills, and the Chariot skills, yeah, Achilles, in his own words, he said he's never taken Cetra on the Chariot before, but he saw the light after this battle, and we played a few more where he was using Cetra's Chariot to very good effect as well. So it ends up being pretty close here. Cetra does carry the day, very, very close in fact, but yeah, 238 kills on Cetra, 2,695 damage value, 17,000 damage dealt overall. Single model chariots in particular, if left unmanaged, can do absolutely heinous amounts of damage. I mean, Cetra's chariot is statistically the best, and he is a caster as well, which gives him a pretty big benefit over somebody like Khazrak, or yeah, Khazrak might actually have higher charge bonus, but you know, Grom the Paunch has his own regeneration, but neither of them are casters, and they're not really, you know, same power level. I believe, yeah, Grom's not even armor piercing, I want to say. Khazrak is, but Cetra just absolutely ridiculous on his chariot. I'd have to look at the mass values, but he might have the most as well. But anyway, great job by Achilles there. It was a fun one for sure. Wanted to share that with you guys. And yeah, the rest of his army, Skeleton Horseman Archers, do a reasonably decent job. Tomb Guard are able to hold for some time, but generally the infantry fight goes pretty heavily in Dark Elves' favor. The Casket can be a solid pick in this matchup, but here, yeah, I think maybe just optioning out for some Nekara Horsemen would be probably a good idea. The Ushabti Great Bows also get some really nice value. Taking out my Charybdis, which was not the best pick, did actually take down the Casket of Souls, which is not fully reflected in the value here, but Besides that, didn't do much. The Slaanesha's Harvesters just got routed off super early on in a bad engagement that I took with the cavalry there, and I think the Carrion probably were the ones that chased them off, and just, yeah, very, very bad for me. But Dark Riders were able to do a decent job. I didn't manage my Dark Shards amazingly, probably could have shot Cetra a little bit earlier on in the battle. The Corsairs, though, I mean, they blend skeletons. They trade really nice into Tomb Guard as well, so I quite like a couple of them here. Karth on foot, not too bad, honestly, considering how cheap he is. He 100% pays for himself. He's just somewhat limited as a foot lord, but against Tomb Kings, I might actually try this again, and, you know, maybe with a different composition, like straight up just cut the Charybdis for 2 Manticores, for example. I think he'd probably be pretty solid. Burning Heads, of course, always good against Tomb Kings. Lore Fire, just awesome. So, anyway. Yeah, finishing up about Chariots, the biggest thing is just always be charging. Stay on the move, and you'll learn over time, like, in terms of mass, what you can and can't charge into. Generally, just as kind of a rule of thumb, all elves and humans are pretty light. Like, even the heaviest armor elves and humans, they are going to be a little bit tougher, but they're still much, much lighter than, say, something like Dwarfs. When it comes to the factions with kind of a dichotomy, like Lizardmen and Greenskins, for example, Skinks and Goblins are very light and generally very susceptible to Chariots. Orcs and Saurus, and of course like Temple Guard, they tend to be a lot heavier, and it's harder to use Chariots effectively against them. Not that you can't, but especially like the lighter Chariots, like the Goblin Wolf Chariots, for example, they're going to be a lot tougher to use against something like, say, Saurus or Black Orcs, right? Dwarfs, of course, as well. Pretty much all Dwarf infantry is considered heavy. Interestingly enough, as well, Undead, almost all Undead infantry, in fact, I think all Undead infantry is considered heavy, even zombies, even if their mass, like, kind of value number-wise isn't as high. I think they are classed as heavy infantry. So they can, I mean, not that Chariots are necessarily bad against Undead, but I don't know. I'm not necessarily as good as they would be against, say, like elves or humans. Other factions, Skaven, of course, very, very light. Chariots also generally really good against them. They have some good counter tools for Chariots, but they're kind of light infantry-focused armies. Very chaff-focused armies can get ridden down by Chariots pretty easily. And that pretty much covers all your bases. I guess Beastmen infantry generally pretty light as well. Chariots are okay against the Beastmen. I don't know, maybe if they have heavy enough armor especially, they can be quite solid, but Beastmen, really good mobility. They can definitely catch Chariots and kill them with various things, so you have to be careful of that. But anyway, yeah, against the Dwarfs, the heavier mass Chariots you probably still can use, just because they're obviously all infantry faction. All Chariots are anti-infantry, right? So, well, besides Scourge Runners, they're also anti-large, but let's not talk about that today. We'll save that for the video about Scourge Runners. Anyway, that's pretty much it for the Chariot tips for today. Those tips apply, you know, whether it's a multi-model Chariot, single-model Chariot, but generally the biggest thing to learn is just kind of learn the different mass values of the Chariots. Generally, the more expensive and higher tier Chariots have more mass, and so over time you'll learn, you know, like this lighter mass Chariot, probably not a great idea to charge those Orc Biggins, whereas the higher mass Chariot, maybe I can get a charge and actually pull away before I get absolutely crumbed. So, something to think about. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.